Hello and welcome to another segment of Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. My name's Elisa William, and today I have the pleasure to be talking with Professor of Psychology and Director of the Center of Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, Dr. Larry Force. Larry, anything going on in your world?
And thank you, Alyssa, and we're glad to be here. And it's an interesting topic that we're going to explore today. And it's really, I think Sandy said it best before we got online here about the undeserved plight of the caregiver. We've talked about this. Is it the complex plight of the caregiver? Is it the distorted perspective of care? So we're going to have this discussion today when we're talking about the role of the caregiver. When the caregiver's presence is misinterpreted either by the person with cognitive impairment or by the family. And typically it's the family who really couldn't pick the family member out of a lineup. They're afar, but once they find out or get a hint that somebody has been brought into the system of the family, they get very concerned, and not necessarily for the emotional reasons. But before we do that, introduce our guests, I'd like to introduce my dear friend and partner in this Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition campaign, and that's Anne-Marie Maglioni. And Anne-Marie is the director of the County Office for Aging. Alyssa had said at the beginning that I have an affiliation with the college. I do. I'm a professor, and I run a Center on Aging and Disability Policy with my dear friend and colleague, Jeff Kahana. However, we come at it from the theoretical research perspective. However, the relationship we've developed with Anne-Marie has been unbelievable in allowing our students to get a sense of the application of what it's really like to work in the field of aging. So I'm pleased and honored to introduce Anne-Marie Maglioni.
Well, thank you so much. And Dr. Force, I have to say, having access to your students has been absolutely wonderful. They are our future leaders. So to be able to work with them and interact with them has been very, very good. Happy to be here. It's a difficult topic that we're going to talk about. And I always think whenever you talk about uncomfortable things, you're growing. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the difficulties that we all know. Caregiving is the most difficult job you're ever going to have in your life. And oftentimes you're doing that while you have your regular life that you're juggling. So now we have the pandemic on top of it. Things can go awry very quickly. But there are times that the reality is people get old and they have cognitive issues, as Dr. Force said, and things are being, kind of lobbed at you, accusations are being lobbed at you, and all you're doing is you're trying to be a good caregiver. Now, this is elder abuse, so we know there is some abuse with caregiving. So we need to kind of unweave this and look at the difference between people that really are committing some financial fraud and some elder abuse and the people that aren't but are being accused of it. And then how do we go about doing that? Because family members, like Larry said, they start swarming in because, they're not feeling well. And now they're hearing cha-ching. I want to make sure that I'm in my will. And I want to make sure that these other outside people that the reality is are very important members of their social circle and friends and have been for years. I want to make sure that they're not going to take what is rightfully mine and my heritage. So,
and what I like to do, I like to build upon that. And the fact is, you said caregiver, and I want to widen it. Mm-hmm. Neighbor, friend, a citizen. You see somebody in need, and it tears at your heartstring that somebody's alone or somebody's been. Because you really could flip it, because a lot of these people have been abandoned by their families, but we don't want to talk about that. They don't want to say abandoned. Mm-hmm. But you develop a presence, and then your presence is misinterpreted. And with that, what I'd like to do, I hope you don't mind, but what I'd like to do at this point is introduce Tim Murphy, the Director of Adult Protective Services in Orange County, and Sandy Altman, who is an attorney, elder attorney, tremendous advocate, both of them. And the reason we asked them to join us is, look, they're part of this coalition, okay, a strong part of it. But we wanted to get their different perspectives about, what would you say, Emery, how to protect the caregiver, how because we're always concerned about how to protect the older person with needs, but what about protecting the person that is trying to solve those needs, right, or address those needs? So I don't know, Tim, Sandy, I don't know who wants to go first, but let's go.
Okay, I'll go.
Go ahead. And you're going to address it from the legal perspective.
Yes, I mean, you know, I deal with a lot of seniors, a lot of caregivers, a lot of family members, and I see the circumstances that you've been describing often, and you know, there's a few different parts of it. I mean, one of course is, as Anne-Marie mentioned, yes, there is elder abuse out there, and there's elder abuse from caregivers, and sometimes it could even be a family member, and sometimes it's someone who has befriended seniors, and there's some people who prey on seniors by befriending them when they're in need. We know that, and so that's one side of it. But over the years, I've seen many situations where there's a parent who needs help, and there's a bunch of children, and one of them is the one who takes it upon himself, and often herself, to be the caregiver. And that's the one who does all those necessary things, makes sure that the parent takes the medication, gets the doctors, all this other stuff, and often stops working in order to do that. Basically, an enormous sacrifice. And then down the line, the other children who maybe will come visit once in a while will start like throwing accusations like, oh, you're just trying to get mom's money, okay? You just want to be in her in her will. You just want to have her power of attorney, have her health care product, basically be in control. And we're not going to have that. And all of a sudden, this person has basically spent months and possibly years taking care of her mom or dad, is on the defensive about everything. And so what happens here is, you know, I always tell the caregiver, good, just ask one of your brothers or sisters to come and live with mom. They can do that. They can ask. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Very often, a parent will come to me for a will, a trust, say, I want to give everything to my daughter who has cared for me all these years. She deserves it. I'm giving her the house. I'm giving her my bank accounts, whatever. And I always say, you can do that, but bear in mind, when you pass away and the will comes out and the other children are basically not in that will, it's going to be hell for your family. Most of the time, the answer I get is, they'll work it out. And if I'm the one who's working on the will, I realize they don't work it out. But this is something that, you know, has the effect of often cutting back on what that caregiver can do, because all of a sudden she has to watch everything she does, and sometimes they stop doing it.
And you know, and building upon that, because offline we talked about two different scenarios. One where there was a misinterpretation by the individual with cognitive impairment regarding the presence and concern of the caregiver, and the other one based upon the concern and distortion of perception of a family member regarding the role of a neighbor and friend. So you're looking at it from the legal perspective. Yes. At one point, not yet, but at one point I want to circle back and ask you, what can the caregiver do to protect themselves, but not yet? because I want to now move over to the agency perspective. And that's from the Adult Protective Services. Because offline, as we were ramping up for this, I said to Tim, you know, if somebody's a senior, can't they call as the caregiver and say, hey, I'm being violated, I'm being assaulted, I'm being maligned? And Tim, your answer?
That the caregiver is being assaulted and maligned?
Yeah, yeah.
If you're not ill or disabled, then Adult Protective Services or the agency is not there to protect you.
Because the second question you ask is what? Are you what? Impaired or disabled?
Are you ill or disabled? And
What do you mean by ill? Physically ill?
Physically ill or mentally ill, or physically disabled? And is there a correlation between that illness or disability and the degree of risk that you're faced with? So there's a presumption that all adults have capacity unless proven otherwise. And if you are not ill or disabled, and there's no direct correlation between the things that you're being accused of or your illness or disability, you're on your own. The APS is here for people who cannot get themselves out of harm's way because of their illness or disability, and they have no one else willing or able to help them responsibly. So Adult Protective Services gets lots of referrals about the situation that you and Anne Marie are describing. And there is a social component of trying to negotiate a way through this with the people who are involved, or it'll end up in a legal arena with Sandy. But I know that you asked the question, what can caregivers do to protect themselves? I'll defer to Sandy. You know, not being a lawyer, I don't know that there's much that you can do to protect yourself from accusations, either from the person you're caregiving to or for, or from family members who feel that they now have a vested interest in what they haven't been doing. You know, I don't know, anybody can commence a lawsuit, but if you know in your heart that you have not committed a crime, you're probably pretty safe. You might just have to walk away from the circumstances.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I referred to before. It's such an incredibly hard job to be a caregiver, and when all of a sudden you're not only being a caregiver, but you have to defend yourself from, you know, other people who probably think they're doing what's best for their mom or dad, or it could be they're just being greedy. I mean, people do walk away from that. You can only take so much, and there's not a lot of caregivers, you know.
Let me ask you something in your answer. Yeah, both of you say walk away, you know, you're not being injured, but you want to walk away with your reputation intact. Because a lot of times the reason that you're being involved is because you're perceived as a person that knows how to get to a resolution, being a leader, being involved, based upon either your role in the community or your role professionally. So people gravitate towards you, towards help. You get involved, and then, you know, it's like running into a house that's on fire. You're getting involved to put out the fire, and the next thing you know, you're smoldering a little bit. You know, so how do you go about extinguishing that and protecting yourself? Because even though it's not physical harm, it's the implication. When I worked for the state for years, there used to be an old saying, it's not what it is, it's what it's perceived to be, the perception of it. So and then even like, you know, sometimes the harder or the louder you fight, the more guilty you look, which is like, it's like a no-win situation. And all you were intending to do was just to be helpful.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Larry. There's not much you can do about an accusation, especially if you're in that field where reputation is everything, you know, and that field seems to have spread to almost everyone. Once something gets in the paper, or once something gets, you know, I mean, so your lead story when you're accused, you're on page 59 when you're cleared. It's a tough thing. Now, you know, when you're in your position or Anne Marie's position, or any of us, I guess, where you're looking to help somebody, one thing to remember is that if it's a matter of family interference, that the person where you're looking to help still has choices, okay? You know, it doesn't matter if one of the family members has power of attorney. Remember, power of attorney doesn't, when you sign a power of attorney, it doesn't relinquish any of your rights. It just means there's someone else around who can help with your day-to-day business. So you sign a power of attorney, you still have decision-making powers and also veto powers. You can stop someone from doing things that you don't like. Healthcare proxies only comes into effect if you are unable to make your own healthcare decisions. As Tim mentioned before, this is, you know, you're not giving up. Well, you alluded to it before, not in the legal sense of it, unless there are guardians appointed, then you can still make all your decisions. You have to be legally declared incompetent. And a lot of people think, oh yes, mom has some dementia or dad has some dementia, we better make the decisions. You don't get that choice, okay? And this is one of the things that, oh, I can take over, you know, I can do their bank accounts, I can do this, I can do that. You still have to get permission to do that, okay? And the situation that—
But having said that, they can take permission back.
Yes.
So if they have permission once, you know, you can take it back. So it's someone who has an increasing level of confusion and a disease that's progressing, that back and forth is likely to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And they could take it back even though the person, their, you know, dementia or their cognitive abilities is declining.
Yep.
So then couldn't the reasoning be, well, they're really not in their right mind, so they're saying that, but they don't really mean that.
So those conversations occur in the adult protective services world all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so then ultimately you end up with this idea of what legal interventions can families or other seniors use to protect themselves or to unravel a messy situation. So then we go looking for legal advice such as Sandy's talking about. But the basic premise for all of us is that we all have capacity unless a judge says otherwise. We're allowed to make bad choices, bad decisions, float back and forth between favorite sons and daughters or not. And this occurs frequently, and it creates a big mess. You know, notwithstanding Good Samaritans, you need to be very careful if you're going to be a Good Samaritan.
Right.
And because there's no real protection for Good Samaritans. You're opening yourself up for a potential lawsuit if the person that you're helping or their family thinks that you've done something bad. Mm-hmm. Adult Protective Services is unique that we are given legal protection, both civilly and criminally, as long as we're working within the context of our job. So there are no other entities out there that will step up and step in and help someone manage their life. You know, power of attorney can be given and taken it back. Healthcare proxy can be given and taken back. Power of attorney should be made durable, but the question of durability is a tough one to prove. You know, where are you going to go to prove that? Go to the person's doctor, and again, it gets ugly.
Right.
Well, so let me ask you this though, because
one more point though, Larry.
Go ahead.
In as much as I say that, you know, people can make their own choice, where we all have capacity unless a court says otherwise, there is no obligation through family or neighbors or friends to take care of the other adult. We are responsible to take care of ourselves. And so for those family members or others out there, they might feel morally obligated or they're financially concerned, but there is no legal obligation for care to be extended to those in our family.
So there's no legal obligation, okay? But the fact is, you talked about the Good Samaritan. In all of our discussion leading up to now, we never really framed it out like that, but that's what it is. So I understand, and I'm not an attorney, but I understand that there are certain things, certain times, people are giving indemnity, that they're not held responsible, no matter what. Okay, they've done something, and I'm not sure if I'm piecing this together properly, but I read something about if you get a COVID-19 shot and it has an implication or has a negative, outcome, you can't sue the person that administered it because it's goodwill, it's the intent, it's emergency. So there's been some type of clause put in there. Has there ever been any discussion from Adult Protective Services or even from the legal side of having some type of Good Samaritan safety clause that, if the person steps up, not because of mandatory need, but because of their heart, and they get involved, and the next thing you know, this stuff is backwashing onto them, both legally and in their reputation. Has there been any discussion, or is there any venue where the Good Samaritan can protect themselves?
There's been discussion about it, and I don't remember offhand of if there's anything. I'm trying to search into my memory here, but I don't think there's anything at all, because I remember that this happens when someone's lying in the street and you help that person, and then they say, oh, when you pulled that person out of the road, you injured him. There's been discussions about that. I don't know that ever went through here.
I don't remember hearing anything either.
Yeah, well, I remember the discussions, but because it comes up in tort law. In other words, can you sue that person? So everyone, most of us want to think that this is how we should treat our friends and neighbors and even strangers with our best intentions to help them. In most cases, when you do that, you should be a hero. Okay, some cases you're not, and as I mentioned before, I said a lot in family. One kid wants to be the hero, and the rest are saying you're after mom's money. But I don't think there's anything, Larry, that prevents someone from turning around and suing you, or reporting you to Tim because you think you're looking to abuse the parents, take their money, whatever it is. I don't think there's anything. And in fact, I'm wondering, Tim, if someone calls you up, is it anonymous? Can anyone do that? I don't know what.
Yes.
Is it like really easy to do?
Yes, very easy to do. Anyone can. We can accept reports in anonymity. We can accept them in confidence. The sources of information that comes to Adult Protective Services are not revealed. They're not foilable either.
All right, so look, let me say this, because I know that this is a very interesting topic, and I think it's clear to ourselves in the discussion and people that are watching this. Our other presentations have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The message is delivered. This one is not as direct as that. And I think that what I would recommend, Anne-Marie, is that the next time we gather, next week, we bring in the Jerrys and the Sharons of the world to talk about the psychological impact.
Yeah.
Because the nature of the Good Samaritan, it's a personality construct. And the fact is, you don't want to be able to dampen down that person from doing good things because of this type of thing. But I also know that based upon time, we have a hard stop in about 2 minutes. Right. So at this point.
No, and I absolutely agree with you. I think, that's the unique thing about this venue that we have. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the difficult. And this is one of the difficult conversations. There's so many layers and so many reasons for it. And we certainly don't want people not to reach out and be kind to neighbors, but you do have to keep yourself, you have to protect yourself. So that's what we're saying. It's going to be an ongoing conversation.
But isn't that sad though?
It's very sad.
It's sad. You go to help, but yet you got to go in eyes wide open that your
It's very
desire to
sad.
help is not going to be misconstrued.
But there's so many layers. So maybe the family member that's coming in, mom wasn't a good mom, you know, and now all of a sudden, okay, I deserve this. There's so many different components to it that we have to be careful. But we're here. We're going to talk about it. If anybody would like to shoot us an email, Elisa will give contact information if you need anything regarding, you know, elder abuse or any kind of Office for the Aging information. Please call New York Connects at 845-615-3710.
I just want to mention one quick thing. You know, this is also a balance, because not only the people who are the Good Samaritans, but also those who might look at that in a negative way and look at, what are you up to? It's something you got to be careful about. You know, your sister's taking care of your mom. Don't mess it up. Okay.
Got it.
Unless you're really sure.
Yeah,
All right,
but it all boils down to perspective.
Yeah. Tim, you want to give your contact number?
Sure. Adult Protective Services can be reached at 845-291-2800. It's our Orange County switchboard, and just ask for Adult Protective Services. And Orange County is also using a crisis call center hotline in 311. We'll get you connected to some social workers who can help sort your problem, and they can make referrals directly to Adult Protective Services as well.
Good. Sandy, you want to quickly give your contact number?
Sure. I'm currently of counsel to McAdam and Fallon, a law firm in Walden, the elder law and estate planning. And you can reach me at 845-800-0650. It's 800-0650. That's my cell. I will answer.
Beautiful. And Tim and Sandy, can we ask you to come back next week? Same time? All right, to continue this. Alyssa,
Sure.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, as always, thank you. Alyssa?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
So thank you guys, and thank you for joining us today. You've been listening to Elder Abuse Virtual Coalition. And if you'd like to listen to this program again, share it with friends, or even comment on it, go to our website, www.Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition, as we pick up the conversation next week. Bye, guys.